Everyone, thank you for tuning in for another episode of Paranomaly Beyond Disclosure. We are a weekly podcast dedicated to sincere, in-depth investigations into the paranormal, supernatural, and the metaphysical, with a special focus on the UFO topic. We take a sincere, analytical approach, thoroughly evaluating each case and its implications. Our discussions go beyond the surface as we engage with researchers, investigators, and experiencers to explore the deeper layers of their testimonies. We strive for high-resolution analysis, carefully examining evidence, patterns, and perspectives that challenge conventional thinking. If you're looking for a podcast that seeks deeper understanding, you're in the right place. Please be sure to like and subscribe and follow to receive notifications when new content is made available. You can also visit us at www.paranomalypodcast.com for more content and information, including all our social links. Thank you again for watching or listening, and we hope to see you on the next episode of Paranomaly Beyond Disclosure.
Okay, everybody, welcome to the show. Sorry, we're running a little bit late. Had some tech difficulties, but we've got it all sorted out now. Hopefully nothing happens. So tonight we have back on Kay Golden, who was on the show previously. I think that was last year, right, Kay? Like in the fall or sometime of last year, we had you on. So she is an abductee, a modern day abductee with ongoing abductions that are still continuing, which I think is really interesting. I think and I think I mentioned this in the last podcast, that you kind of resemble to me a little bit like the abductees of previous decades, in terms of the type of experiences you're having, the way you relate to your experiences, like you had no sort of background in any of this, you didn't have much of an interest. I think you said that you thought that, aliens might exist and that there's stuff out there. Correct me if I'm wrong anywhere. And then I think it all began right in September of 2017, was it? The Diamond Bar abduction. Mm-hmm. And so maybe we'll just recap a little bit for those that didn't see the first part. We'll just go over the kind of basics, but real quick, I'll just kind of set up the general outline. So this seems to be a kind of like multi-species operation. There's different, which is very common, abductees, that are witnessing, radically different looking extraterrestrial species that seem to be in cahoots and seem to be all part of the same operation. It may not be, though, the same operation. There could be different hybridization programs, different groups that are using you. They're just using you as an asset, and they're not related, or they could all be related. And so these beings include small grays, which I think are not your typical small grays. You call them the zeta grays. And I know people associate zeta reticuli with like the typical gray, but these grays are kind of different in that they have a bluish skin tone, which isn't normally reported, with typical grays.
They're gray with that blue tint to it, and they're a little bit pale, pretty ghastly looking. Other people describe them as darker. Some people describe them as peach or beige even. So but they are the robotic movement type. So these are the half or part biological beings that come and take you as an abductee. They do the dirty work, basically.
Right. And they move kind of jerky, like their movement is not smooth and it's kind of jerky, and they don't seem to be autonomous. Did they seem to, I don't know if I asked this question in the first part, Sometimes abductees witness synchronized movements, suggesting maybe a hive mind sort of connection. Have you ever witnessed that with these particular? I just want to ask that real quick. You've never witnessed, them sort of, all stepping together with the same right leg at the same time or anything like that?
No, I have not seen that, and
Mm-hmm.
that's interesting. That is interesting.
Yeah, it's not a constant though. It is by no means a constant. It's probably the minority of cases where abductees witness that, but sometimes there's synchronized movements, sometimes blinking, which blinking isn't even, witnessed that much at all, but there have been some abductees that claim to have witnessed simultaneous blinking, from gray looking beings.
No, I've never seen any pupils in them. I've never seen any movement of their eye. It's just like they're wearing these dark black wraparound sunglasses.
Right.
So there's nothing there. They're just kind of black, shiny, almond shaped or cat shaped eyes, but they're big and they're creepy.
Right.
But yeah, I've never seen them blink ever.
Yeah, and I think that's rare. But apparently, I don't know, some abductees have seen that. But anyway, so this started in 2017 in Diamond Bar, which is in Northern California.
Southern California, in Los
Southern
Angeles.
California.
In that area. Yeah.
And just give us a brief, what happened in the initial abduction.
So it was just like the day after Labor Day, or I think that night. Yeah. And I had, before the abduction happened, I had this terrifying dream. It was short, but it was a terrifying dream. I was walking through mist, and there was some vegetation, probably some brush and maybe a few trees. And I saw some cloaked beings, and no faces, just cloaked beings, maybe about 5 feet tall, cooking something in a pot in the middle of this mist and these brush and these trees. So I'm walking over to sort of investigate. And then they all turned, when you were talking simultaneously about the grays turning, that kind of thing. They all turned and looked at me at the same time. And then all these weird hands were trying to grab me. And I thought I got the distinct impression they were going to put me in the pot. And so that was the precursor. So that dream happened. And then that's when I was awake in the bed, and I saw the blue light in the room. And it wasn't like a light beam. It was like the whole room was lit up with this bluish white light. And I didn't know where it was coming from at all. And I'm looking, and your mind, when you've been trying to sleep and you have a dream like that, and you're trying to organize your thoughts in a panic, actually, because you're freaking out when you see this. And my husband's sound asleep next to me. The blue light, to me, wasn't coming from anywhere. It was just in the room, very ethereal, almost like a vapor or fog. Really weird. I mean, I looked toward.
There was no discernible beam at all. It was just the room was filled with light,
right? Exactly.
Uniformly filled with this blue light.
Right.
And your husband wasn't necessarily sleeping. I mean, he was
switched off.
To use the abduction literature term, he was switched off. Because
exactly. Bud Hopkins and David Jacobs switched off. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Go on. Yeah.
So that didn't last very long. Then the vibration started in my body, and it was a really strong vibration to where I felt like I was getting, like I couldn't breathe, or I was choking. And the beam, or the light, did start shrinking down. It was funny because the vibration made me think, okay, and the light made me think, okay, this is an earthquake. But nothing was shaking in the room. I was the only thing vibrating. And I don't know if it was some frequency that was being used or what that was, but it was making me lose my breath. I wasn't able to catch my breath very well, and it was hurting me. And this is all happening probably in a matter of seconds. And the light beam shrinks down, and I find myself, I usually slept on my back and kept my hands down by my sides, or kind of just crossed over me. And it's hot in Southern California, so we had the ceiling fan on high. Basically, I was made immobile, couldn't move. I had ended up on my left elbow looking towards the window to see if there were police emergency vehicles out there, thinking at first that it was an earthquake, and there wasn't anything. So I was laying kind of more flat on my back again, and my head was up a little bit on my pillow, and I was looking, and something touched my foot at the end of the bed, and this light is getting a little smaller and shrinking down a little more, smaller,
Starting to
until it was
focus.
just on the bed instead of the whole room. But where was it coming from, you know? And then I freaked out because something touched my foot at the bottom of the bed. And then I saw in the light this pale 4 or 5 inches, well, maybe 3 to 4 inches of a roundish head, nothing, you know, in the eyes, those huge black eyes. But the touch on the foot, I was repulsed. I wanted to kick and scream, and I could not move my leg or my foot or my arms or anything. About the only thing I could move was my head. So there's something down there. I don't know what it is. In the book, I call it a thing because I don't know what it is. And later on, I just, in my head, something popped. It said, you know, this is a gray or a zeta gray. But that was before the.
Just to stop you there real quick. So it popped in your head that this is a zeta gray, like the thought.
Yeah, after a while, that took a while. It was actually, I thought, okay, at first I wanted to believe it was, you know, an earthquake, that this was weird, but then something touched my foot, and when I couldn't move, and I looked down there and I saw that head and those eyes, it was like, oh my God. And I didn't want to believe what I was seeing. You don't, I mean, in the middle of the night like that, you see something like that, you're thinking, oh my God, I'm dreaming. But I was awake. I was awake. I could feel the ceiling fan, the rush of the air, and all of that. And like I said, I could turn my head, but I couldn't kick at the thing, and I wanted to badly, and I wanted to scream. I wanted to wake him up. Nothing was coming out of my mouth because I couldn't move my mouth. It was like it was sewn shut. And that, on top of everything, is just so terrifying.
That's one of the more terrifying elements of the abduction scenario, is the feeling of no control at all.
Exactly.
You're there, you know that something's going to be done to you, and you have no control over your body. You can't run or do anything, and that's a very terrifying, vulnerable state to be in. But anyway, we'll kind of skim through this to get to the new experience. But you're taken on board a craft,
yes,
and then physical examinations,
right,
take place.
And the way I was taken through the window, locked, closed glass window. We're on the second floor, and shuttered, and dark curtains, and they lifted me up over towards the ceiling. And I remember trying to tell them, you're going to shred me. That ceiling fan is on high. And moved over my husband. I thought I was going to hit the bedpost. It was a 4-post bed. And I passed through the bedpost. My head passed through. And at one point, I think I thought I was going to look down and see my body, like an out-of-body experience. That did not occur. And we're moving towards the window, and I'm thinking, oh my God, these are aliens, and they're taking me, and they're going to take me through that. And I'm thinking, you're going to kill me. In my mind, I'm going, and I'm trying to scream it out, and nothing's coming out. And went through it all and ended up in a amber or yellow colored beam. And I remember being in the beam and thinking, I want to escape. I don't want to do this. This is not happening. You know, I'm refusing at that point to even believe that this is happening. I'm not going with you. But when you're in that beam, you still can't move. You're still under their control. So the red tile roof was coming up, a 2-story house. And I wanted to reach through the beam and grab the last tile and try to get out of it. And you can't do it. You can have that wonderful heroic thought of trying to do something like that, and you can't do it.
So you can't move anything at all. Like
Nope.
there's not even a minor movement like of your anything, you know, nothing. Everything is just completely,
you're frozen. I mean, they just completely make you totally immobile. I could smell the salt water from the Pacific Ocean and could feel kind of a breeze. So I thought maybe that's why I could reach through the beam and grab the roof tile and stay on the roof for the next 5 or 6 hours until somebody saw me and rescued me. Or I jumped down off the roof. I don't know. But yeah, no, you can't. They've got you once you're in that beam. And that was the only abduction where I was in a beam and saw the bottom of the craft And before I actually saw the craft, what we were going up to looked like space. It just looked dark. It was blotting out the stars, the craft that I was going to. So it was big. No stars. You couldn't see any planes or anything, like just totally black, blacker than black. Maybe that's the best way to describe that. And then an opening opened up, and we go in, and the next thing I know, I'm on a table. Excuse me. And that was unbelievable. I mean, I don't have enough words in my vocabulary to describe feeling so out of control, scared to death, not knowing what to do, and not being able to do anything. I mean, I was down on this table and I was pretty much secured to it, couldn't do anything. And at the first table, that's when the tall gray, I believe that one is the one that came in, and I felt something in my back, some kind of needle or something like that. But I also remember getting escorted, walking through a corridor from that table and getting put onto another table, a little smaller table. And there was another, I think a real quick flash of green shot in the room and was doing something to my arm. And then it shot out, and then this tall gray, I mean, I have the illustrations in the book, but very tall, 7.5-foot being, gray skin, pale though, little bit of a tint of blue, not a lot. And it was also just freaky because 7.5 feet over my 5'9", laying on a table, and this thing's looking down into my eyes, is shocking. There's no words for it. The whole thing, there's no words for it. Mesmerized, or maybe shocked by the eyes themselves. They were like inky black, pool-like, mirror-like, reflective. So very creepy. And there are just no words for it. But
let's go into
sure.
into depth a little bit. We'll go into depth a little bit on the tall, and maybe a little bit too with the small grays, and then we'll jump into the new experiences that we haven't covered. Because I'm curious whether or not these are at all related or are similar to the typical small grays, or are these, completely different, and I'm just curious if we run through some of, the typical gray features, whether you recognize that or not. So now generally, there's the shorter grays, the 3.5 foot to about 4 feet grays, and then there's the taller gray. Now, not the tall gray, in your case, you have a true tall gray, like a 7 to 8 foot gray. But typically with most abduction experiences, there's the little ones, and then there's the slightly taller, maybe about a 1/2 foot taller gray, which is often referred to as the leader or the doctor.
Right.
And this gray is different. The taller, the leader, the Dr. Gray is different from the smaller grays in that he's a little bit taller, for one. He doesn't have the same skin texture as the smaller grays. People describe the smaller grays as more kind of their texture, more kind of rubbery or even plasticky. And then the taller grays seem to have like a rough, leathery, or even striated kind of skin texture, and sometimes wrinkles. Was that difference there between your tall 7 to 8 foot gray and the small grays? Was there a skin texture difference like that?
So yeah, so the small, the Zeta grays, I call them, the robotic looking things, I've actually knocked one over, and it knocked over really easy. I was really angry and popped at one. But they have kind of I wouldn't say rubber or plastic, but it's sort of a rough skin texture on these beings.
It's the small one.
And they smell bad. Now, I don't know if the smell is from them being cloned, or if they are part biological, what part that is, or if they excrete something out of their skin or anything like that. But they smell funky. The ships smell funky. I mean, it's like not bad meat necessarily, but what do you call it? A lit match. So sulfury, and then with like black licorice mixed in, really, really awful, horrible
That's
smell that assails the nose.
and that smell is like very pungent in the craft. Like
Yes.
you're just smelling that like
Yes.
intensely, and that's like a big part of the experience of being on board the craft is that smell.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
interesting.
Now, the small zeta grays, so that skin tone again, it is gray, but it's got a bluish like undertone to it. So and they have the skin suits, so they wear the dark skin suits, almost black, maybe dark blue, black. And I've always thought since then that maybe they wear that color so it's easier for them to come out of the darkness and take people. I don't know. That's just the thought. But the tall gray that I deal with, his skin seems to be a little more smoother. He has not touched me very much. I mean, he put his hand over my abdomen and during certain procedures, and always it's calm, and this is necessary, calm. But he's touched my shoulder. Right.
Reassuring statements, which are typical of seemingly all the grays, give you these.
Yeah, we're not going to hurt you, but oops, I'm sorry. You're getting a needle shoved in your, or 5 needles in your arm, or 4 wires attached to your head.
Right.
Yeah.
So it seems like there's a reversal here, though. So you're saying the taller gray in your case has a kind of smoother skin tone,
yes.
Which is a sort of reversal with the typical sort of grays that most people deal with.
Right. And he's got a pink mottled area on the back of his huge melon-like head back here. And that may be some age. I mean, I don't know, but he's got really long arms, long forefingers, they're almost bony looking. That's the way I can describe it. Creepy. And dark, long nails. And that's what's touched me on my shoulder a couple of times by that one. The Zeta Grays pretty much only touch you right here on the elbow.
And very lightly. I was reading your book over the weekend, and I didn't realize this at first in terms of how the grays escort you, or at least these grays. They don't seem to grab hold of your elbow very much. They just very lightly sort of touch your elbow and sort of gesture, for you to go.
And like I said, it's robotic. It's like they're if it's a hive mind from the progenitor gray on down, maybe there's the progenitor gray behind him, the mantid being, but under the progenitor gray there could be actual different grays, hive mind controlling the smaller ones. But I've always thought that it's been the progenitor gray controlling the smaller ones. I'm not 100% certain, but that's what I think, because it's always like they're standing by in this little niche in the craft in the room that I'm in. There's always one just standing by, like in a shutdown mode, until it's summoned to take me off the table and take me through the corridor, the hallway of the craft. And then they go in just shutdown mode again in this little niche.
They go, explain that. So they go into a shutdown mode, and they go over to a little niche in the room, and then they just stay there until
they're summoned again. It's either in the room or outside of the room. Yeah.
So they're not like going around performing various tasks, because that's often how it's described by the typical abductee, is that the gray bees are performing tasks. They're sometimes at consoles, even though we hear stuff about,
and there may be more. This is just the one particular one, and they look alike. I don't see any difference between them. Even when I had the 4 or 5 in my office in the other house that one night, they look alike. But yeah, there could be 4 doing something else, and then the one is just my, as I call it, Zeta Gray guide or companion in the book, taking me through the corridor, taking me to the glowing doorway, pushing me through, and me landing on the bed.
Right.
Yeah.
So going back to the differences between the tall and the smallers, now with typical grays, abductees there's a consensus that the head of the taller gray is not as rounded as the smaller gray. Is there any difference between the head and the shape of the head?
Yes. Yeah.
Between the tall and the smaller. Yeah.
So the small zeta grays have like a light bulb shaped head, and take like 15 Philips light bulbs, 60 watt, put them together. That's your zeta gray head. And it's got a point. They've got a pointed chin, very pointed chin.
How sharp is the point? Is it?
It's a good, my chin is not sharp. So it's, sharper than this, like that, basically. And then the
not like
a more rounded chin.
Okay. But not like a sharp point.
No.
But the pretty narrow point.
Yeah.
At the same time. Okay.
And then of course they've got the big wraparound eyes. The tall gray's eyes don't go quite that far. I mean, they're large, they're separate. But the creepiest thing about that tall gray is those eyes, because when they look at you, it's like your soul's being sucked out of you. And I know that's not true. That's just kind of how it looks. Very, very creepy.
It feels, yeah. And many abductees get that same sensation, like you're being pulled or you're falling. Some people say it feels like you're falling into their eyes. They feel like, if you just submit, that you'll be gone, is the sensation sometime that, if you like, there's a danger to just losing yourself into the eyes, and the eyes seem to look through you and be able to sort of read. You can tell that the eyes somehow, through just seeing the eyes, that they're kind of,
I think they can pull information from you. And that's how they're so manipulative. They can kind of pull whatever you've got in your head from your past, a person, a place, anything like that. They can pull that stuff. And I think that's where the screen memories come from too, a lot of times, is they're pulling this stuff from you and going, hey, let's use this so she doesn't remember, or he doesn't remember everything that happened, and trying to, what do you call it? Suppress the memory of what happened.
Yeah.
I still have things that I don't remember totally. Everything in my book is just everything that I can recall. But and the tall gray, when I talked to Linda Moulton Howe about this, I've had so many discussions with her. We believe that this is a progenitor gray. So progenitor gray not from the Reticula constellation, but from Orion.
Oh, and how did you deduce that?
Well, talking with Linda a lot and other people that she's talked to, we kind of she says she has heard other stories about these progenitor grays, and she believes that
that description.
Right, exactly. Because when I told her about it, I said, you're not going to believe this, but this being is always there. He's like the leader, or maybe a military. He has that sash and the belt and that little protruding 6-inch metal thing that he's used on me as a torture device, basically, a couple of times. But it's the sash with the hieroglyphics or the cuneiform writing. I really don't know what it is. I would love to know somebody who can decipher it, but I don't know if it's a military ranking or something else.
It looks like military. It has the sort of feeling of something military, like how we have, badges and stuff on our military uniform. So it gives you that kind of impression, and in that way, it kind of seems like it's military.
Yeah.
Going back to the eyes, do the eyes of the tall gray move at all? Do they squint sometimes? Do the corners of the top of the eyes move, raise or lower?
A little bit, yeah.
They do.
Now, he doesn't have any eyelashes, but I try not to look into those eyes. I try not to look directly at those eyes. Most of the time, it's I'm not necessarily immobile all the time, but most of the time there's some sort of secure straps involved on the table, and if it's the manted being and the gray in particular, then I'm not going to be able to move. But that's when I know I don't want to look in those eyes at all. And I don't like looking at the mantid. The mantid is very creepy. I mean, something that looks like an insect that's tall and, 5 feet, 6 feet, and has a cloak on, a dark green cloak, and has these yellow green. And they on the cover they made them red. They're not red. The eyes are like green, yellow green, and they made them red on the cover. I'm not sure why. but the cloak is dark green, goes to the floor. And the first time I saw the thing, it just, the insect-like arms coming out towards the screen. And that's when I was being tested on that 4-arm table machine.
Right.
Creepy.
Trying to look for
It's
a picture
creepy.
of the mantid. There is one on the cover.
Yeah.
This is the second volume.
Yeah, that's the second volume, and that's the mantid. But the eyes should be, yeah, they should be more yellow-green. So more blended in with that skin color, their green color, greenish brown.
So as far as the gray eyes, though, and that they do move a little bit. Now, does that movement signify a difference in expression? You know,
Yes.
it does sort of like, depending on where they are or how it's squinting or where the edges are, it conveys a different kind of emotion or like, can you tell emotional state? Because you've mentioned in some experiences that you felt like the tall gray was mad at you, and we're going to go into some of those experiences later. Was that based on the eyes, or was that based on a telepathic
based on the feeling?
It's a feeling.
Well, like the one experience where, that was the chapter about the antenna. I can't remember what the number of the chapter is, but that's where we were up, and he was pointing out that, looking through the portal window of his craft, which is like a 30-foot craft, it's almost always cloaked. But we were up in a cloud. But before we got to the cloud, and this was Colorado over the old house, we were looking down. I was able to look down and see all the horse properties and the houses and everybody's yards and all that. We weren't that high up, maybe 30, 40 feet in the air, but I know we were going up. And when he pointed at the roof and he said, basically, you need to know when to use that. And he was talking about my husband's ham radio antenna. And I've told my husband this.
Well, let's go into that experience in full depth at some point. But yeah, absolutely. I want to go through that entire experience because that's a really interesting one. I just want to say, in regard to the tall gray, the emotional states of the tall gray. So, and this is coming from David Jacobs and his earlier work, Secret Life. From the consensus of all the abductees that he has interviewed and regressed, it seems like they do exhibit sometimes being perturbed or exasperated or sternness and annoyed. Sometimes it's been witnessed that the taller ones will get irritated by the smaller ones, maybe for not taking the clothes off the abductee quick enough, or not preparing the abductee for the reproductive examination quick enough. But never anger, he says, that they don't seem to have, there's no outbursts, there's no uncontrollable behavior, like humans, have.
Right.
There's no violence or aggression, but there is some exasperation, annoyance, or seemingly,
and sarcasm.
And sarcasm. Okay. Why don't you give us an example of that? That's interesting.
Okay. So in December of 2023, I was feeling kind of depressed, and I didn't know whether to continue the original book, or just stop and give up, because I was feeling really depressed because the contact's still happening, and writing was supposed to alleviate me of all of this. And I thought, once I was done writing everything, nothing would happen anymore, but that wasn't the case. So I didn't know what to do, and I ended up getting taken that night, and I got taken into this small, dark room, and I'm assuming it was in the craft. And a little Zeta Gray just guided me by my elbow to this room. I went in because it's basically, I went in there. It was dark. There was like one little area lit, and I could see a classroom table, one of those really old ones from like I went through in the 1970s in elementary school and stuff. Little just wooden desk. They had a flip top type, those kind of desks, and hard chair. So that was sitting there, and there was just a little light in there, and there was nobody in this room, and it didn't look like a huge room. And there's a couple of things on this desk. So there's like a stone jar and a feather over here, and then there's a pile of like paper. And as the light got a little brighter, and it did, I looked at it, and it was writing vellum, or really old writing vellum. That when I touched it, it kind of fell apart.
What was the word again? I didn't quite
Vellum, writing vellum, parchment paper from
okay. I've never
ancient,
heard that before.
because I touched it, and it's like it just fell apart. And there was, so then I'm looking at this, going, there's some liquid in this stone jar as this light's getting a little bit brighter in the room, and it's showing me that the room is bigger, as the light's getting bigger. And I'm like, okay, what's going on here? So I see the stone jar, it's got some dark liquid in it. I see this pile of paper. When I touched it, it kind of fell apart. So old parchment paper, or writing vellum. And then the feather, and I can put 2 and 2 together. So I see this, and I'm thinking, not funny. The light brightens up. Tall gray is standing right over in this corner, looking straight at me. And with this, like you said, like the eyes were kind of wrinkled right here. And
Like
he doesn't, not laughing or anything, but you could kind of tell that it was and then I got in my head, now write your book. And so I'm thinking, okay, I see. So yeah, that was kind of a joke. So an attempt at humor on his part. And then I continued to write after that.
That's interesting.
I exited right out of the room and pushed right back through the little glowing door and shot right back into my guest bedroom bed.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Yeah, that there isn't a whole lot of at least with Graves, there isn't a whole lot of cases where humor is exhibited.
Yeah.
I can think of very few offhand. I know there was one case, I think David Jacobs reports about this, where it seemed like there was a taller gray and there was some smaller grays, and the taller gray snipped a lock of hair off the woman abductee's head and then seemed to hold it up to its scalp. And from the abductee's perception, it seemed to be like some kind of humorous thing that it was doing. It was like, pretending to be the human or something like that. And there was some kind of amusement, it seemed like, on the part of the smaller grays who were watching the taller gray do this.
Yeah.
And there's that case, and there's not a whole lot of cases where you see humor, but there is some,
Yeah.
and we are dealing with, different species. And so perhaps there are some.
Well, and he does show emotion. Now, no, I've never seen any true anger, but you mentioned frustration. And I think that night with the ham radio antenna, and when I go into detail about that, you'd understand that we were supposed to be going up, and because of what I thought into his head, tried to say to him, I was getting frustrated myself, we were going back down. And yeah, no, this tall gray has emotions, because he wouldn't have been disturbed, felt that I was disturbing him when I tried to do that meditation and contact him from that, when the Russians.
Let's go into that. Let's go into the experience. Yeah. So this was at the time of the beginning of the Russian invasion in Ukraine, and you were really disconcerted, as many people were, about this. And you felt like, you just in your emotional state at the time, like you wanted to reach out to them for what it was worth.
Well, and that morning, again, I was speaking to Linda Moulton quite a bit. So we were talking about it. We were both just crying over the phone. We just couldn't believe this was happening, because this man's a maniac, and, starting World War III. And we didn't know if America was going to end up getting involved in this. And she had friends in Ukraine. I don't think I have a relative in Ukraine, but she did, and a couple of my friends did. So yeah, it was upsetting. And so she said, do you think you can try to contact the tall gray being, Rex, and tell him that, we don't like this, what's happening, and are they watching, or can you get anything from him? And I told her I would try. I have never tried anything like this before. So I spent the afternoon that day going downstairs in the basement in my office and lighting a 3-wick candle, sitting basically on my bed or on my butt on the carpet and just staring at the flames and trying to deep breathe and focus on just the flames and kind of let myself go. And I tried, I thought I tried 2 times unsuccessfully.
Were you putting
And it
thoughts
takes a while to do this. I can do the deep breathing pretty well, but focusing on the candle and doing the deep breathing at the same time, I can only manage it for maybe about 6 minutes. But you do that and you're trying to sort of project yourself up and out, so to speak, focusing on the tall gray's face and those black eyes. And this is a face that I see at night many times right when I'm trying to go to sleep. Sometimes it happens really quickly. Sometimes it doesn't happen at all. It's just all of a sudden in my head. But anyway, doing that, I ended up feeling very disappointed and feeling very frustrated that no tingling was coming to me. I wasn't vibrating. I wasn't feeling like I was making any progress.
Were you also putting out thoughts to it, like, Rex, can I have a moment?
So basically, I was just trying to initiate contact, like, Rex, we're here. This guy is crazy, and can you tell me, are you guys watching over us, or are you going to do anything about it? I think Linda basically wanted me to ask if they're going to do anything about it. Well, if these grays are here and they're stopping nukes and they're starting nukes here, why won't they help? And that's kind of her concern. But anyway, so I was trying to project that out, and it was unsuccessful, or I felt it was unsuccessful. And I went upstairs, I think, relaxed for a while, made dinner, and I tried to tell myself, okay, come down and make one more attempt to try this. Because like I said, I didn't feel any tingling or anything. And I don't know if when you're trying to do that, you're supposed to feel any tingling or get some sort of sensation or feel frequency or, vibe. Nothing. It felt like a big flat nothing, a fat nothing. So I came back downstairs. I lit the candle again. I sat on the bed. I focused just on the red part of the flame, not the blue part of the flames. Did my deep breathing and tried again. And it still felt like nothing. And then, of course, that night, it was, going to bed and about 11:30 or so, saying goodnight to the cats and all that, getting a high-pitched tone in my ear, and, of course, getting taken that night. And not through a beam, but that's the whole feeling of the breaking down into small, tiny particles. And then all of a sudden, boom, I'm right up there.
And let's just talk about that for 1 second before we go on through the experience. So it seems like I was talking to, I don't know if you know Peter Maxwell Slatery, and he thinks that sometimes, I think the way he put it, you're just being vibrated straight onto the craft. Like the craft is, like,
thank you,
right?
Yes.
In the same space where your bedroom is, and you're just being vibrated into that frequency where it is straight onto the table. And is that what you think that is happening?
I like the way you said that, because I have been trying to find a way to describe it, and it's impossible. It starts in the head, goes through the body, and there are times when it feels violent, like my body's being ripped apart. More times it's just head and body, and there I am back on the ship again.
Mm-hmm.
It's very hard to explain it.
Yeah, why is there that variance? Why, is there sometimes the whole beam process, and they come into your bedroom, and, they surround your bed, and then they take you up.
And I don't know. I couldn't explain that. I couldn't explain that at all. I wish I could.
I mean, I guess one thought would be, okay, maybe it's a different species and it has different methods of transporting the abductee onto the craft.
Or it's a different faction, because the tall gray has inferred that they do have some warring between other grays. So there's more. There's got to be more than probably 5 different types of grays out there. If you think of the tall grays and the other grays 5 feet or so that people report, and then you've got the robotic grays, and you've got the real Zeta grays, and then you've got the Rigelian grays, with who have the noses. Supposedly they're the more Roswell-y, peachy.
Yeah, some people call those the long-nosed grays.
Yes, exactly. So there's a few different types.
And then you have all these different colors. It does report, dark gray grays or regular gray grays, and then sometimes light gray grays. sometimes tannish grays,
Right.
Sometimes white, very pure white grays, sometimes dirty white grays.
Right. And then you've got teal.
White.
I've heard people say there's teal grays in there too.
I've heard that as well,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. So there's got to
Big
be
universe.
at least 5 or 6 different I mean, some
Yeah.
people say there's like
Yeah.
60. I think I've heard some
Exactly.
like
So
200.
yes, you're right. It could be that I was taken the one time up through the beam from Diamond Bar, and then all the rest has been this, like you said, this frequency vibration thing that happens, and I'm just back on the ship. And that has happened so many times. I have lost count.
But both times when you were picked up with the beam, and then this time where no beam was used, Rex was there. So that Rex being there kind of suggests that, there's a constancy between these two groups, or these two the same captors we're talking about, the same species.
Yeah.
They're just using a different means. Anyway, so go into the story. So you're vibrated straight onto an examination, or there is no examination in this particular?
No, not in this one. Yeah,
you
this
just
was,
vibrated straight upright, and then all of a sudden you're standing on the
right.
craft?
I'm standing, and little Zeta Gray is guiding me again by the elbow. I'm going to what I call the domed area or platform area, where the Gray is usually doing something on a transparent like screen. It has like purple, just a little bit of purple, like that cuneiform writing down the sash. It's almost identical looking type lettering, if you would, figures on this transparent screen. And the platform room has 3 steps. He's a little bit over to the, I don't know, north, south, east, I don't know. But I end up going in there, and when I said he gets kind of frustrated, so I got this whole, basically, what do you want in my head? I'm busy. What do you want? And that's when I said, look, I go, do you know of this man, Putin of Russia, on Earth? He's doing bad things. We're all kind of afraid. We don't want nuclear war. And then I got brushed off. It was like, we know, we're watching. And then I was pretty much dismissed. But I was told to watch this one person. But he wasn't specific. It's always cryptic with this tall gray being. Watch this one person, and I have the name now. I can't remember the name anymore, but he was a political person. I'm not even sure if he's in office anymore.
And what did he imply?
What 3 years ago, 4 years ago now? And Linda and I have talked about this guy. We didn't trust him, and we actually felt that he was a reptilian. And that may be why the tall gray was saying, watch this guy, because he was, I think, somewhat involved in international type conflicts and affairs.
So watch this guy because he's going to do something not good.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm. But
I haven't seen the guy. I haven't seen the guy in the news or anything. And right now I can't remember his name. I would know it if I saw it. But anyway, yeah. So, but he brushed me off, and after that I got dismissed, and the little gray just led me through the corridor and the hallway and to the glowing doorway and popped me and back right in the bed again.
Let's talk about the return real quick. I don't know if we drilled into this or not in the previous part. So a lot of times the return isn't remembered. That's the one thing that's interesting. Right. Most abductees just don't have good recall of the return. Right. Some people do have recall of the return, and there's a lot of variance with the return. Mm-hmm. I think in some cases there is, in the one case of Barbara Eberhardt, who I had on the show a little bit ago, she goes to this one, she's led by a gray to one specific room, and there's a sort of alcove cut out into the wall, and there's a little seat there, and she sits down in the seat, and I think as soon as she sits down, she finds herself like immediately teleported, straight into her bed.
Wow.
And then there's other people, where there's a little raised circular platform on the floor, and they're led up onto that platform, and then they come down. They suddenly are coming down in the beam like they came up and then some people describe that the beam is a different color when they're coming down.
Interesting. Well, and in the diamond bar situation, the way I was returned was not the way that I went. So I went through the beam up to the ship. The way I was returned, I was just in the bed, boom, wide awake, freaking out, basically crying, sobbing, and wanted to wake up my husband, but couldn't because he had to go to work early, and it was a brand new job for him that morning. So I just hightailed it as best I could downstairs and went outside and had my coffee and tried to think it all through. But so yeah, I didn't come back through a beam that I know of. And when it happens now, it's always this glowing door that the little Zeta Gray always takes me to. Sometimes the Zeta Gray goes in with me, and I go one way and it must go another way. Now, how do you explain that?
Yeah, so it goes through with you and then it doesn't arrive.
But it doesn't arrive with me. Right, exactly. And this is the way it's been happening for the last, oh my God, since, well, that diamond bar was 2017. So basically since, 2018, 2019.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And just for the interest of the viewer, there's other situations in terms of the return where the abductee enters a small room where the ET makes them lose consciousness, and then they wind up in their bed, shortly after that.
And that could be happening. Maybe the door I'm going through leads me to that small room, but I can't remember, or I'm made not to remember that part, and that's why I'm in my bed.
Right.
But I always feel a thump when I hit the bed. And the last time, can't remember if I told you, but the last time, the one I posted on Facebook where I had woken up and explained to everybody what was just happened and said I'd get myself together and do another video. That one, I woke up sideways on the bed with my head almost touching the carpet.
Mm-hmm. Which, abductees definitely report that, or you'll wake up sometimes standing up on at the foot of the bed, or maybe not even in the bedroom,
your bathroom, or outside in your yard,
outside, underneath the tree,
yeah,
or in the neighbor's house on the odd occasion, in the wrong house.
Good Lord.
There's a lot of different mistakes.
Yeah.
Are you ever rushed, and is sticking with the return for a little bit longer? A lot of abductees, when it's time to go, they'll say it's time to go now, and they may rush you, and some abductees are given the impression that you have to go now, because if you don't, you can't stay on the craft for very long, or you'll get sick. I think Deborah Cobble was told that she would get sick if she stayed too long in the craft.
Yeah, and I think that's true. I think, just a thought, that, as I told when I was on the show before, and I told you about the beam, the blue light in the room coming down, the beam narrowing down, and then just being on my chest, and then the vibration, and I'm not able to breathe. It was awful. I think that beam does something to your body so that they can take you up there and you're not going to get sick for a while, and they can do their procedures, and then you don't give them anything. I mean, I'm just guessing at that. Kind of sanitizes you for the ship. And then once that's done and they've done all their shots and taken your blood and all that kind of stuff, and choosing what to do with you, because I'm pretty sure every one of us might be getting used a different way. That's just my belief. There is you're kind of clean, and so they can take you whenever they want to, so you don't have to go through that process again. But you can't stay up there probably very long, because most of my abductions have been no more than probably 2 hours, except for that one where they took me out into the cosmos, and that was crazy. That was totally crazy. That my son pounded on the door to wake me up at 11 a.m. the following day, thinking I was dead. He and his pregnant wife were visiting us. Everybody wanted to go out to breakfast, and I'm like, no, can't do that. I was physically wiped out. Felt like I'd been hit by a Mack truck from what I went through.
Wow. Yeah, that seems pretty extreme. I mean, generally, the abductee reports that they feel exhausted, drained, tired the next day after abduction. Sometimes having, marks on their bodies, and maybe something else that feels weird or wrong. But that's like an extreme case. What was I going to say?
You want to go back to the ham radio one?
Yeah, let's go back to the ham radio one then. Yeah, we'll cover that, and then we'll get into the hybrid baby one after that. But yeah, let's go to the ham radio one because that's But oh no, I just wanted to before we go to the ham radio one, I just wanted to say that it is quite interesting with the last experience that they granted your request, that he didn't want to see you. The Greg didn't really want to see you. He basically gave you the impression, or actually stated explicitly, that he was busy and didn't have time to deal with this, but yet he still saw you.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, why is that? You could imagine it the other way, where he's just not going to, abide by that and just not take you at all because, he's got stuff to do. But it's almost as if like for something compelled him to do it. Maybe because you were projecting yourself into his consciousness and that was creating a problem, for him.
Possibly. I was interrupting. Yeah.
Kind of rules or did that give the impression that, that they care at all or that, even though he was impatient and that, he didn't really have time for you, the fact that he granted your request still, like, did that give you the feeling that maybe, he does have some respect for you, as
like in his pet.
Right.
Oh my God.
Or what do you think compelled him to grant the request?
I don't know. I think there may be some sort of connection now because of all the thought transference that's gone back and forth between us. And then all the testing that they've put me through, all the procedures that they've put me through, and yes, the hybrid baby room and all that. It is kind of like I'm important to this being, or I don't think he would have acknowledged what I was asking. So that's an interesting question.
And maybe there's some rules and regulations that he's having to follow that maybe he
That's
doesn't
very true.
care to follow, but we never really know,
Right.
what's
Right.
coming from on high, from the helm,
Right.
down to these tall grays, who could be very low level actually in the grand scheme of things. We don't
And that's
know.
true. That's very true.
And they're following certain protocol and they just have to do it, and because there's,
Yeah, there may be guidelines that says they can't interfere with us. They can't stop a nuclear war, but they sure do seem to be buzzing around our nuclear areas and turning on missiles in Russia and turning them off here and turning them on here and turning them off there whenever they want to. Kind of like, hey, we can do this and you can't stop us. Which if you think about that, that's a little frightening. But yeah, they must have some kind of guidelines, whether they're strict guidelines or if they're just more, I can't say a moral code for them, but I suppose that's possible if they have emotions.
And on that note, I will say, and I don't know if you've picked up on this at all, during physical examinations and procedures, there seems to be this, I don't know if it's a constant or not, but it's pretty frequent where whatever's going on, in some way, it is communicated to the abductee that this is what's happening. And even if it isn't obvious from the procedure itself and what the abductee is witnessing, it's telepathically conveyed, like during an implantation procedure. Many times they don't know, or they don't see, in some cases they do see, there's a little sort of round thing on top of an implement, and then it goes in, and then when they pull it out, it's gone, and they deduce from that, that an implant has been put in there. But many times they don't see anything, but when they're being regressed and they're asked about it, they just somehow know, or they just somehow know when they're being implanted with a zygote or fertilized embryo, even though it's not obvious from what they're seeing, visually, they just know that. And there's just many cases like this where they're being informed. I think that these are telepathic conveyances that are telling them we're doing this, and it gives me the impression that it's a kind of rule, that they have to sort of almost give informed, not necessarily informed consent. I mean, it's not like there's consent there, but they're informing the abductee that this is taking place. And I think that may relate to what we're talking about here, as far as there seems to be some kind of guidelines and regulations that they may be following. And part of that might be, that they have to inform you about each aspect of the procedure. The fact that they take you into the incubatorium, they take you in there, they show you this and they show you that, and then they tell you, certain things. They give you like a real rudimentary sort of idea of, what's happening here. There seems to be, like a rule of you have to inform the abductee, that just like, we do during a medical procedure, like we're going to take you and we're going to scan, we're going to put you through the MRI machine. And anyway, I just wanted to make note of that. And it seems maybe part of that kind of possible guidelines that they're acting upon, maybe. Let's go to the, yeah, go ahead.
So when the procedures happen, though, the only I don't get any instruction. I mean, I'm either tacked down to the table or just not able to move, or stared into by those eyes, and then you just can't move. But there's no instruction. It's just what they do, whatever procedure they do. But I always hear in my head thought transference from Tall Gray Rex is, okay, calm. This is necessary, or this has to be done. Stay calm. And then in some cases, they'll put that 4-fingered hand with the long dark nails just over my belly area to make any pain sort of ebb away. Best way I can describe it, dissolve, ebb away.
Yeah.
During certain procedures. I guess there's maybe a level of caring there, but again, I relate it to being a pet.
Yeah, we really don't know in the case where they console you and give you reassuring statements, whether they're just saying that because they want you to be still and
compliant.
Procedure, they might need you to be, compliant and not, thrashing about, because the paralysis restraints are imperfect and don't always work. Sometimes the abductee fights through them. Sometimes they're just not there, and the abductee will just get up off the table and run somewhere. And those are always interesting cases to read about, where the little small grays are chasing the abductee through corridors. And I just want to say too, because I could be wrong, and it might vary between faction, whether they have to inform you or not, because there does seem like there's a lot of procedures where the abductee has no idea what's going on. Something's happening to them, they know something's happening, but they don't have any clue. I mean, most of the machine examination procedures, there's all kinds of machine examination.
Well, and you're groggy. If they have done anything to you to either drug you to make you really groggy, or if you're just groggy from the trip up and out, or if they use their eyes and can make you groggy. So I've had times where I'm waking up on the table trying to see and everything kind of blurry, like when that green, the manta being shot through that and around the table. It was just a real quick green flash. I mean, my eyes were they were blurry, but something shot through in a long green blur and shot back out. And that's when I felt that needle appear in my back, or at least that's what it felt like. And I had that area of my skin removed. I was going to send you the picture of the scar. It's like 2 inches long, this wide.
Yeah, from that incident. Yeah. What do you mean you had the skin removed?
So it bothered me for a couple of years, and it got to the point where I went to a dermatologist in Northeast Colorado. And they looked at it a couple of times and they did this and that to it, and nothing was relieving this. So they said, okay, you need to have this little localized surgery, right here in the office, and we'll take care of that. And they'll do a biopsy on it, right? Well, all of that was done. I never heard a word from them. I never heard back about the biopsy. I didn't get a letter or an email saying, we found this or we found that. And I kind of jokingly told the guy, because I was writing the books, at this time. And I jokingly told him, I said, hey, if you find something strange in there, will you please let me know? So I can take a picture of it and put it in my book. But no, I never even heard from them. And when I called the clinic to say, hey, this is, Kay Golden, and I had this procedure done, and can you give me the results? They were like, yeah, we gave you those results months ago. And I'm like, no, you didn't. So I never found out what was in there.
They couldn't resend them to you.
Uh-huh.
That's suspicious.
And that's what I said. And, well, we've got your email address as this, and we sent it. And I'm like, I don't have it. So, and they couldn't tell me over the phone. Was it, what was in there? What, you know? So it's one of those weird, strange mysteries that shouldn't be. But that's what happened. So I've got that scar, and then I've got the scoop marks and the shot in the arm from over here with the five dots and the 4 little tiny punctures back here from the wires being hooked up. Oh, and the triangle on my leg.
Right. Yeah. The wires from, are you talking about the wires from when you were the purple?
That was that forearm table procedure. When I said everybody's getting used for some particular reason, I think some of us are being prepared for something else. It's like tested for something, because what that was so bizarre, and it was never explained to me by anybody, including the tall gray Rex, why I was being tested like this. But they put me on that forearm table, and I got to go around and around and around. It felt like being on a barbecue spit. I was heating up. I felt nauseous. And the mantid was at the controls. That was the second time I saw the mantid. And then the little gray is just there to take me off the table, put me on the table, and hook up the wires to the back of my head, which is what happened. And they spun me around some more. It's like they were testing me for space travel or walking or something, maybe longevity.
Yeah, it almost seemed like maybe like they were testing for your pain threshold, because there's other experiments, not quite like that, with a gigantic contraption machine like that, but there have been abductees that describe a tool that's sometimes used that would cause excruciating pain. It was like metallic plates or something that would be put on them, and it was excruciating. And when you couldn't take it anymore, then they would take it off you, and then the procedure was done, and then that was that. And they would tell them sometimes in these cases it had to be done.
Yes. And also during that one, the Rex wasn't there, and the mantid doesn't speak to me by any means, and neither does the little Zeta Gray. They don't talk, and I don't hear anything from them. But I did basically hear, again, this is necessary, because I think I was projecting, hey, why are you doing this to me? But this is the one where I could see back through the vortex into the master bedroom.
Yeah. Let's go to the, we'll quickly cover it so we can get to, I definitely want to talk about the hybrid baby experience. And if we have time, we might have to do a third podcast, Kay, to get to the interesting sort of bartering experience where you witnessed some trade happening amongst hybrids. Well, let's go to the antenna experience.
So that was a cold November night, I believe, in either 2022 or 2023. And I think I was sleeping in the master bedroom, and I'm taken, and I'm up on Rex's craft, and he points out as I'm looking through the portal window, look, basically in my head, look. So I'm looking, and we're above the neighborhood. You can see the horse ranch and houses and all that, and it's dark, it's at night. And he was pointing at our roof, at our my husband's ham radio antenna that's on the roof, but 20-foot tall antenna, and basically said, through thought transfers, this is important, use. And I'm asking him, what's so important about my husband's ham radio antenna? And basically he inferred that I would know when the time came and that I needed to use it. And I know I shot back to him, it's not my antenna, it's my husband's antenna, and I don't know how to use ham radio. But he said, basically, you're going to know, because I'm thinking, okay, message, what message? And, you're going to know. So that was interesting. And then we were going to go, I noticed we were going up higher, which was interesting in that there was all this glow around us. So we were in this cumulus cloud, I guess, and the moonlight was lighting up the clouds. And that's what we felt like we're in this great big fluffy thing. And so we were going to go up, and some little tete-a-tete happened between me and the tall gray. And I got frustrated, and I said, you can take me whenever you want. you're watching me, and I know you are. And I was getting upset, and I think I yelled as much as I could yell through thought transference to his head. And why don't you just take me to your planet and have done with it, and show me, if that's what you're going to do it. And we started going down and not going up. So there was something else he was going to show me or take me or something. And because of my little outburst in his head, and again, we're talking about emotion here. So I probably frustrated him, like you were talking earlier. And we started going down, and then I got led out of the room, taken by the little Zeta Gray, pushed through the doorway, and back on my bed again.
So you're saying that something was going to happen, and
I
then
think so.
he changed his mind. So sometimes that does happen. There is kind of like the general feeling that, they're going to perform this procedure no matter what, there's nothing you can do to stop it. But there are occasions where sometimes the abductee will be in a state that is not right for the procedure. I've heard of one experience in Secret Life where, because she's described it as she was out of it, and they had some kind of discussion, the smaller grays did, and decided that they weren't going to go through with what they were going to go through with because of the state that she was in. And so sometimes, they can sort of cancel something, this going to take place, and maybe it was your emotional state or what have you. But that's interesting. That sometimes they can change their plans. There's just some more detail in that experience that I wanted to maybe bring up. He says, I think in the same experience somewhere, or you were saying to him, "Why can't I take pictures?"
Right. So somewhere along the line, he had inferred that I wasn't supposed to be taking photographs of their crafts in the night sky or the daytime sky. And I think that's when I asked him, why can't I take pictures? Why? I've already taken pictures. And then it was through thought transference, basically, that he said, basically later you can take pictures. And I kind of said, well, when later? And again, it's that, well, you'll know, and soon. So I didn't know if soon meant I'll know soon, or if it will be soon that I can take pictures. But you know what? I'm still taking videos, and I'm still taking pictures. So don't let that sway you if you're out there and you want to take videos and pictures. I just don't think they like it.
And you said to him too, like, how will I, or something to the effect, how will I prove you exist?
Yes. So yes,
something like,
people want to know, right?
Proof.
People want proof. I don't want to just, be up here having these conversations with you and not being able to show them a picture of you. I mean, not like I had my iPhone with me or anything, but and they don't have pictures on their walls or anything of, there's no artsy stuff. There's no, it's very plain. But anyway, so it was, you're not supposed to take pictures, but we can take pictures soon. But I didn't know when soon was. Does soon mean 2025? Does soon mean 2026? Is it Christmas? Is it when 3-Eye Atlas comes? I mean, who knows?
Right. And he says at some point, I exist, meaning, I was trying to think of what he meant by that. I exist, no proof, pictures.
Yes.
That he exists independent of whether you take pictures.
Right, exactly. Whether I take a picture of him and bring it home or not.
Yeah, maybe it does. It doesn't matter,
right.
Whether you have pictures of him. I exist.
Right. I mean, I exist even if you don't have a picture of me, or if I wasn't on video. I know I exist. I'm here.
Yeah.
So I think that's
what he was saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, that's interesting. And then you asked at some point, where are you from? And he says, no time for that. They've never answered about their
other than the one conversation I think I had originally with him was like, well, I heard the URRs thing a couple of times. It rang in my head like a bell for days afterwards. And then that whole exchange where I said, well, if I'm yours, you're not an earthling, you're something different. I don't look like you. I can't possibly be yours. And we kind of had that little tete-a-tete. And then we got into the whole English language, and it's real short. He was just saying that basically their language is much older, different, but they helped to create our old English language. Now, how old that English language would be, I don't know. Again, he can be very cryptic, but he's eons old from what I gather, progenitor gray, from a planet that possibly doesn't really have much of a population or doesn't totally exist anymore, and they can't live there, and that they're flying in ships.
Mm-hmm.
And
all right.
recreating possibly a less emotional human cross gray type person, hybrid species, less emotion.
What do you mean by that last part?
So more of a calmer human, I think more human than gray, but a calmer species, because we're very aggressive and violent.
They want to create a calmer species, or they are a calmer species?
I think he's a calmer species. Mm-hmm. But I think that's what their goal is to create a calmer species that can dwell on Earth without fighting. I mean, that's all in our dreams, probably, who knows, but that's kind of the impression that I get. And that's why the whole hybridization program is going on, and why there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them in the craft, in the mothercraft.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many abductees have been told similar things, and you can get the impression maybe that the process that created us, might still be ongoing,
It might be.
And these hybridization programs that are going on now are just further refinements, to the species, and they aren't, something new that's just being introduced right now. I think that there is that possibility. Okay, let's move on to we'll finish out with this experience, I think, the hybrid baby experience, chapter 19, I think, in your book. And let's go through all the details that start at the very beginning. I think it starts out with you heard the high-pitched tone, and you always hear it in your right ear.
Always the right ear. It's always the right ear. Nothing ever happens in the left ear. It's always the right ear. And it's a real short tone, just real high-pitched, real short, like, and then it's gone.
Identical.
So I know my attention's being drawn to whatever they want, but I ignore it. Most of the time I try to ignore it. And then I know it's going to happen again, and it does. And usually right when I want to, go to bed. But so yeah, you hear that, and you're kind of being summoned. And I try to turn over, go back to sleep, and then there it goes again. And I think I don't know if it was this particular abduction that it was a little bit longer. One of them was a little bit longer, trying to get my attention really bad, but it might have been. Anyway, I end up being taken. I'm broken down. I'm up on the craft, and little gray guy is guiding me through the mothership. Lots of corridors, lots of hallways. I don't remember any specific elbow bends as we were going, but more curves.
Is it the first time you've been in the mothership? Is it the first time you've ever been in this mothership, a really large ship, or wasn't this completely new to you at the time? Like you were surprised, or didn't you?
I think this was the first time in this particular craft.
And when you arrive there, are you immediately at a table?
No.
Which looks like a faux leather table? No, not during this experience.
No, it's not a faux leather table. Trying to remember.
Or where were you when it started out? Were you just in a corridor and you're being walked?
Yeah. So being walked by the little gray, and then I know I'm supposed to see something because the Tall Rex is telling me you have to see this before you go. So I might have been on a table in that one first, and then led away. But it was the mothership because it was big. because you couldn't have a room like this on Rex's craft. It just wouldn't fit.
How big are we
Huge.
talking?
I mean, like, it was a big room. It was like a good warehouse size room, maybe like a Walmart. I mean, now you're talking about a human perception on something that's an alien craft, where it's possible that everything just looks huge to us, or time space warp could be smaller. We just don't know.
Right, could well be time space warp. There's many
Yeah,
occasions where an
right,
abductee will walk into what seems like a really small craft, and then they get
right.
inside, and it's
And
a
it's huge
gigantic.
inside. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I've had that experience in the domed room with Rex. It's like all of a sudden the ceiling looks 30 feet high when it might only be 15 feet high. And I'm stretching out 60 feet to go, him to walk and me to walk to meet, and it's further or it's shorter. So it's very strange how that works. I mean, I don't understand it. But so anyway, the little Zeta Gray is guiding me. I'm told I have to see this, and it takes me in this room, and it's lit sort of like with a peachy glow, and there's a chair brought because I'm about ready to pass out from something. And it might have been the procedure, it might have just been being on the ship, I don't know.
so there
But
was a procedure before this point that you
yeah,
don't have a
so
recall of?
it had left the room, and something occurred to where I felt really dizzy and was gonna pass out. I think it was from looking at all the different, it looked like an acreage of, what do you call it? What do you call them? Vats, or
Mm.
like tube-like structure, kind of all over the room.
The incubation chambers.
Thank you. Yeah, incubation chamber. And I knew that's what it was. And I'm thinking, okay, what is it the tall gray wants me to see? And I'm kind of shuddering about this. But this tall gray female comes out of this peachy pink area glow with something in her arms, really tiny. It's draped in this like green silk, or light green silk. And I'm thinking, oh boy, I know what this is, and I'm not going to believe it, or I'm not going to go there. So, but I am told I have to hold basically this hybrid baby and look at it. So, she gives it to me. She's tall.
She
And
says
she's
you have to
wearing,
look at it. She actually states that you have to look at it, because that's an interesting detail.
yes,
I haven't heard that
you
much. She said you
need to
must
look, kind of like I'm supposed to be nurturing to it, maybe. And I didn't want to. Um, But so I get it, and I'm looking at this tiny thing. This wasn't even a preemie baby. I think preemie babies are bigger than
give us
this.
the whole description of what the hybrid baby looked like.
Yeah, so really
Large
tiny,
head.
small head, really small head.
Not a
Yeah.
disproportionately large head.
No, it was more of a human-looking head,
Okay.
right? Tiny,
Atypical.
tiny ears. It was tightly wrapped, and all I could see was one little hand, and it looked like it had 5 fingers, normal. But it didn't have like peachy skin like we do. It had that gray blue color, gray with a little blue tint to it. Very pale, very fine looking, almost like porcelain. But the skin, I ended up, touching face because I just didn't know what else to do. And I ended up, and big sapphire blue eyes in this thing. I mean, large sapphire blue eyes when open and looked at me. Just kind of a repulsive touch. It was kind of cold and clammy. So like they pulled this hybrid out of one of those vats and brought over kind of it cold and clammy over to me to hold. And I didn't want to look, and I didn't want to touch it.
Was it wet? Was it wet from the vats?
That's what I think. It was cold and clammy. I think that's exactly it.
Sometimes they say the abductees will report that the vats are dry and there's no liquid in there at all. And then some people say that there's liquid inside the vats. So I was just wondering if there was moisture.
It could be nourishment for this, because if it's part human and part gray, it's got to have some kind of nourishment, right? Yeah. So maybe that's what they're in. And but yeah, cold and clammy. And I didn't like it at all. I mean, the blue eyes were
You
very
didn't like
little.
it at all throughout any part of the experience. There wasn't a moment where, you know, maybe when you made eye contact with the baby that you felt like, oh, you
Well,
know, this is my baby, and you did feel some maternal. Was that there at all, or was that
not
completely
really.
non-existent?
I was more of thinking I want to get out of here. That was more of my thought. But I didn't feel motherly towards it, and I think that's what they wanted me to do, is to be motherly towards it and nurture it. You know, here, hold it to your chest, and I didn't want to. I mean, I did what was instructed of me, but I didn't like it, and I didn't want to. And not once did I think that that was my child, because and later I thought about this. I thought, well, if that was my child, wouldn't I have felt something like that? Wouldn't I have felt, okay, yes, I love it. I'm a mother. I didn't have those feelings. So I think I was just being subjected to this to show me, hey, we have these hybrid children, and hey, we just want you to hold one. And I'm going to leave it at that. But it was freaky. There were so many of them.
And
So,
the baby was kind of listless and not
yes,
very responsive and moving
right,
around or making sounds. Like it was kind of quiet.
right,
That's
right.
how they typically
Yeah.
are.
And I didn't get to hold it very long. I mean, she came back, the tall gray female came back pretty quick to take it. But I was instructed to look, hold it, and that's what I did.
How long do you think you were holding it for?
I don't think maybe more than 7 minutes. So I don't think it was a very long time at all. It was enough for me to go, okay, this is enough. And I think the tall gray female might have sensed the fact that I wasn't enjoying this. I wasn't going to be motherly towards this thing.
And maybe cut it short?
Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah.
And maybe somebody else would have said, oh, this is beautiful. I did not think that way.
So you didn't feel any connection at all, 0% with the baby. Did you feel like
0%.
this is my baby, or did you feel like this
No,
is not my baby? You felt like it's not your
no,
baby.
no. I didn't feel it at all. Because like I said, days later, I thought about it and I'm thinking, I don't feel anything about it. Most women who are torn away from their own children are going to feel a sense of loss. And
Mhm.
I didn't feel that.
Do you still think conceptually that it could be your baby, and maybe,
Yeah, it could
because
be.
of it could be, yeah. Um, Chubby, skinny, hair, no hair? What?
Thin, thin,
Thin?
thin, frail, like more frail than a preemie baby, a human preemie baby would be. This thing was only about maybe 12 inches long, if that. Really tiny hands. And yep, that's a great
Hair, no
statement there
hair
from
at all?
Benno.
Any hair on the head?
But so yeah, it's just really tiny and fragile, and the blue eyes were striking, but
Oh,
the
yeah, what about
clamminess. Go ahead.
sorry, describe the eyes again. Did they have a
Blue,
hypnotic quality to them?
a little bit, a little bit. Because they were not open when I got her. They opened after she was handed to me. And I say she because I got the impression it was a she. I didn't get to look because again they wrapped it tightly. I wasn't going to unwrap and look. But the little five-fingered hand was kind of closed up like a human hand would be, kind of fisted.
Mhm.
Um, but the clammy touch, that was it to me. It was like, okay, that's not human. We're not clammy like that when we're born. So yeah, but
And
yes, it's a possibility.
right, and any other details, or did they just take the baby and that was the end of the experience, or was there anything else that happened during the course of that was significant?
I'm trying to remember. I know that I got dizzy and almost passed out, and they brought me a chair. I think the little Zeta Gray came and brought me the chair to sit down in, and that might have been when she handed me the baby. I think that's right. Um, but honestly, I just don't know how real the fact could be that could be mine. I try not to think about it. That's one of those thoughts I push way away from me because it's just part of the whole thing that I'm not ready to I'm not ready to buy yet.
But what if, just coming away from the analytical side myself, what if you just gave up resistance to that idea, and then by doing so, that kind of reduces the charge of that whole sort of possibility, or experience, that you had. If a lot of times it's the resistance that you have, to this or
Right.
that, that
Putting a
kind
mind
of
block in my head saying this isn't me.
qualifies,
Yeah.
the experience, to some degree. And if you just sort of reconcile with that, maybe that would be therapeutic or beneficial, regardless of whether you want it to be or not.
Right. Right. And I suppose if it were to happen again, then I might be more inclined to believe it. And if it had happened earlier, maybe. Um, just all these other things that have happened. It seems like if that was the most important thing, why not let that happen first and then let the other testing parts happen, afterwards?
Yeah, true. David Jacobs actually does talk a lot about this. It seems like the reproductive procedures are primary. That always occurs, and the child presentation is more secondary. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. Yeah, that is true. So what happened at the end? They took the baby, and then they gave you a chair because you were feeling dizzy. And
Right.
do you remember the
Yeah,
rest?
and I think I was feeling dizzy. I can't remember if it was just from being on the craft or if it was from realizing what that was that she was bringing. But anyway, sat in the chair and I got to hold the infant, the baby, and look at those eyes and touch it. And again, it was a short amount of time. And then I think I was feeling, no, this isn't mine. I refused to believe it. I was kind of repulsed. And then the tall gray female kind of either sensed or thought into my head, knew what I was thinking. And that's when she kind of came back and took the infant from me, knowing that I didn't want to participate in this and that I didn't want to be holding it. And then pretty much after that, it was, being escorted out again and out and back home and sitting and thinking about it. But the funny thing is, it hasn't been just the hybrid baby. There's been a hybrid child, and then the hybrid older ones that I talk about in the chapter with the trade that happened.
Right.
So I've seen the hybrids at different stages. So yeah, the 3-year-old holding the baby, and then the older one, and then the barter, the trade on if it was a ship or something else. I still don't know if that was a ship, but so I've seen the hybrids at different stages.
And do you think that the baby you saw was the hybrid, the adolescent that you saw later, and was the same being during the bartering experience, or do you think that they were different hybrids?
I think they were different just because of the timeline.
Right. Although
Yeah.
trying to think what is in the literature about. There is some odd stuff that has been put forward to explain the timeline things. That there are maybe growth acceleration technologies that they have that could explain why the adolescent hybrid could be this old when it's only been so many months since it was a baby. I think Geraldine Orozco, I don't know if you've ever heard of that abductee we had on the show, mentioned some things about that. They may have growth accelerating technology or some kind of techniques that could make it so that you don't really know, whether or not maybe that was the same. The adolescent was the baby, and so forth.
Right. Or if you believe in the time travel theory, maybe I saw the 3-year-old I saw the little girl first, the 8-year-old, supposedly 8 years old, right around there, over Peterson Space Force Base. That was interesting. And then the 3-year-old on the on the craft. I think that was the mothership also. That was a 3-year-old. And all of them have sapphire blue eyes. And then the baby, and then, of course, the barter trade where they're older hybrids, but not really old, just kind of like teenager type hybrid.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe there's a time shift here happening. I don't know. I wish I had that answer. Man, do I wish I had that answer.
And any, retrospective feelings about the hybrid babies in terms of, like, has your thoughts about them changed at all over the years? Do you feel like a longing, like you want to have contact with them again? Many abductees kind of feel later on.
If it were mine and I knew for certain that it was mine, I would say yes, not a problem. But I still say that I would have been overcome with joy or love in my heart seeing this little thing if it was mine. Now, if it was just looking at me to recognize me as a human or as a surrogate mom, I don't know. But it was looking at me as I was the mom. I wasn't feeling it.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any recollection of reproductive procedures, clear recollection of reproduction procedures like egg collection or implantation, fetal extraction? You do have some.
Yeah. So on the cover of the second volume of Into the Gray's Abyss, the abductions continue. There's the cover, right? So there I am, kind of nude, and you got the mantis being right there. He's supposed to have yellow-green eyes, not red eyes, and then the tall gray. So during that procedure, and it was a longer table than that, but that was where I saw more of the 3.5, 4 foot long test tube, clear, translucent, had that ambery liquid in it with beings in there, which I'm going to assume might have been growing from whatever procedure they're doing. But what they did to me was basically a gynecological procedure, and I was said to collect eggs. And I remember the tall gray is holding on the cover, he's holding the 4-fingered hand with the long dark nails over me because I'm in pain. Of course, I'm not showing the procedure happening on the cover. Of course, I wouldn't do that. But the mantid is right there, down there at the end of the table. He's got this almost like a gynecological tool, scope type thing. And of course, he's inserting it in between legs. I don't know. Anyway, I'm in pain, and the mantid, or the gray, is putting his hand over to let the pain kind of ebb away from me, and he's looking down at me.
Putting his hand over the abdomen or your head?
Yeah, over the lower abdomen where the pain is. And it was going away. It wasn't going away completely fast, but it was going away. And I think I asked him, thought transference, okay, how many times has this happened? And of course, he puts into my head many. And
how many? Many.
I don't know how many, but many. And so after that, I thought about it for a long time. And I remember an instance long ago when I thought I was pregnant and still had the little kids. We still had our little kids. My husband was still in the Air Force. And we're at Vandenberg Air Force Base. And as a woman, when you get pregnant, if you've already had kids, when you know, right? Things start happening with your body and And I was so sure. I went out and bought baby clothes at the BX on the base. And they knew, my husband knew, my kids knew. And it was from February, March, April, something like that, 3 months. And then I woke up bleeding, and it was heavy. And so I made the appointment for the gynecologist on the base. And when I went to her, she examined me, and she said she didn't see anything there that said I was pregnant. Nothing. But it doesn't make any sense that all of that would have happened and there wouldn't have been anything there. But she said there was no traces of anything. So I believed her, But looking back on all of this now, that's a very real possibility.
Yeah. And I think that's typically how it is when you get examined afterward. There are no traces afterward.
Right. It's
Beforehand, it can absolutely be medically proven that you're pregnant and that, that there is a baby.
Yeah.
But afterward, they wipe everything clean.
Yeah.
I mean, even though there's,
Right.
heavy bleeding and everything, but there's no fecal matter, whatsoever.
Right. Exactly. It's gone. It's just all gone.
Yeah. And that's how that typically goes down.
Right. And then, so when we had COVID going on, right, I did get the first shot, and that was by Moderna. And that was in May of 2020, 2021? Can't remember. And then the second shot, the booster came along from Pfizer. I had to get it from Safeway. So that's all in the book. So I got that shot, and then because of that shot, I believe, seriously, 2 days later, I'm in menopause. I've been in menopause for 5 years, 6 years, maybe longer. And all of a sudden I started menstruating again for a long time. It was 6 months. I talked to Moderna. I tried to talk to Pfizer. Pfizer would not return my calls or my emails. Moderna did. I filled out a whole form for Moderna. But I believe it was that Pfizer shot that did it. But during this time, I had some strange things happen again. So, we talk about the hybrid child possibly being mine. And yes, that could be a result from that, because I was able to, have those eggs taken again. So yeah, it's a little disconcerting, but yeah, when many means lifelong, I think they've been doing it for a while.
Yeah, I think that's probably likely the case. And we don't know exactly, again, how many is many and what are we talking about.
Right.
I mean, it
How
can't
many
be.
do they take at one time, right?
Yeah, I mean, you would think that it can't be any gigantic number because
Right.
you're only
Right.
human.
But yet I saw hundreds of those in that nursery, hundreds of those.
That you think could potentially be all yours?
Oh, God, no.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I mean, I suppose
some abductees think that they do have hundreds, that the number is in the hundreds.
Wow.
But I wouldn't expect that when you're presented the incubatorium that all of the babies inside the chambers are your own. But anyway, we'll do a quick wrap up. I think we'll have to do another episode since we didn't get to all your experiences.
Oh, we didn't get to the barter.
Yeah, we didn't get to the barter. And so we'll definitely have to get to that in another episode at some point, because that's a very interesting experience and kind of maybe sheds an interesting light on some strange hybrid culture or practices and characteristics of this phenomenon that may be still.
Well, it makes sense. There would have to be something going on between the species, right? I mean, there have to be a way for them to get supplies if they use things, materials for ships or whatever they have. So there has to be some sort of trade system.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I would think so. And they seem to, I'll just be really quick because I have to run to work. They do seem to have kind of like this autonomy. They don't seem like they're under this rigid control from the Greys. It seems like the way they do things is the hybrids kind of have this kind of lateral freedom, to do certain things that they want. I mean, sometimes they come down, onto the planet and visit the abductee mother. They show up at the doorstep.
Yes.
This might be what the black-eyed children are potentially.
Oh, I know. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But anyway, to be continued. We will definitely come back to this.
Okay.
But thank you, Kay, for coming on. This has been a great, in-depth discussion. I always appreciate having you on. It's just great level of detail. So you have 2 books. You have, if you want to read, what are the titles of the 2 books?
So Into the Gray's Abyss is rewritten because of its length, and it has better content in it, a little more illustrations to it. It's better written. So it's been written into 2 volumes. So you've got volume 1, which is basically my true abduction accounts, and it's unbelievable if not experienced, which is true. And then volume 2 is the abductions continue,
which I have here.
Yep. And whoever throws out the best question tonight will get a copy of volume 1. Well, actually, can we do 2? So we do volume 1 and volume 2?
Yeah. Why don't we we're going to promote the show.
Okay.
And for YouTube, put question, because this is going to go out to a lot more people from today. The questions, put questions in the comments, and then maybe, let's say a week from today, we will select the best question, and Kay will, I'm trying to think how we can get contact details from comments on YouTube. That might be difficult.
Well,
actually.
I can give you an email that they can contact me at, or you can contact me at, however you want to pick the best question.
I'm wondering how we can contact them. It might be difficult because I know they can't put an email. They could get a hold of you maybe on Facebook.
Sure, absolutely.
Or a page on Facebook. And yeah, we'll try that. There's got to be a way to reach out to put your questions in the comments of the YouTube video, and subscribe to our Facebook channel, and we will be able to somehow link up the subscriber to the comment of the YouTube channel, and we'll get the we'll contact you, and we'll get the signed copies to you.
Cool. Yeah.
And then you also have them for sale.
Yes. Yes. So if anybody wants a signed copy, an actual signed copy of volume 1 or volume 2, you just have to contact me on Facebook, or you can contact me at krg@kgolden.com. And it's $6 for shipping, and it's $70 for the signed book, either volume 1 or volume 2. If you want both of them, it's a little bit less. It's like $130 for both, and no tax. And I ship it. So you get your copies, they're signed, and everybody's happy.
Okay, great. Again, thank you, Kay. This is a wonderful episode. Yeah, I definitely recommend getting those books. I read part of volume 2 over the weekend. It's really, really detailed. There's just a lot of interesting things, a lot of stuff that we haven't talked about in either of these 2 episodes that you can find in the books. And thanks, everyone, for joining us. There are live shows every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And join us, like and subscribe. That really helps the channel. And okay, we will leave it at that so I can make it to work on time. But thank you, Kay, and have a good evening, everyone.
Thanks for having me. Have a good night.
Yep. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for tuning in with us tonight. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and follow to receive notifications when new content is made available. A Paranomaly Beyond Disclosure is looking to talk with ufologists, researchers, investigators, contactees, abductees, channelers, and more for upcoming shows. Or if you have stories, photos, videos, questions, suggestions, or comments, please contact us through Messenger or email us at paranomalypodcast@gmail.com. And you can also visit us at paranomalypodcast.com for more content and information, including all our social links. I thank you again for watching or listening, and we hope to see you on the next episode of Paranomaly Beyond Disclosure.